Sid's in here. He's pro-union in Matewan. The Phelps agency comes in, starts, making a ruckus.
Right. And the thing about Sid was he was every bit as rough as the Baldwin Phelps detectives. All right. So this is a guy kind of, and places like Matewan were kind of like Dodge cities, they were just kind of like the Wild West, except it wasn't, out west. It was the Wild West Virginia, I guess. And so, if you were a chief of police or a sheriff in some of these small areas, you had to be willing to, break up serious bar fights, violence. They had a lot of violence, like bar fights and things like that, because cocaine was a big problem in the coal fields back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before at some company stores, they sold cocaine.
Bunch of Tony Montanas running around. I didn't even know cocaine existed till a certain time period, so that's good to know.
Yeah, it was legal for a while in the United States.
Oh, that is right. It was in Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But in the company stores, they would sell. It wasn't like the powdered version that people sniff today. It was the leaf, the coca leaves.
Chew on it.
Yeah. And so they put it in their pipe. They either chew on it or put it in their pipes and smoke it like tobacco. And miners would get coke, and they would use it before their shifts in the mine so they could shovel more coal. It's like 10 Red Bulls or something, right?
Oh yeah.
And you could. Woo! You could shovel that coal.
Go for it.
But it doesn't go over really well if all of them are coked up on Friday night at the bar.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem.
And so the biggest, this is, you can look at, go back and look at newspaper records. This guy wrote up an article named Paul Rakes about this stuff. They were having huge problems with knife fights and gun fights in these company town saloons every weekend because people were all coked up and drunk. And so if you were a chief of police in these towns, you had to be, a pretty tough guy to be able to handle all that.
Right.
So I'm just trying to paint the picture of what kind of guy you had to be a lawman in these little isolated towns. Oh, yeah,
he's doing rails in the back and going out like, who are these guys out here causing... He's just ready to go.
Right, he's ready.
Yeah, he's ready
in more ways than one.
Oh, Lord.
So... Hatfield and them dispute the fact that the detectives have a right to evict these families. They're like, look, we're going to do what we're going to do. They go into the town or out of the town and start evicting the families in their homes. They come back to catch the evening train. And then, of course, this is where things go awry. If you've seen the movie Matewan, you know that they kind of meet out in the center, by the railroad tracks. And so they kind of set it up like a Wild West shootout. Didn't actually happen quite that way. And we know this because of the court case. And we've got the court case transcripts. And so all the witnesses talked about where everybody was when the gunfight started. So there was a guy that was a deputy for Hatfield, Ed Chambers. And his dad ran a hardware store. His dad was Reese Chambers. And that hardware store, by the way, is exactly where our first museum was, the original museum.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was the hardware store. So they were in the hardware store waiting for, there they are, Sid and Ed.
Yep.
So they were waiting in the hardware store, which was the back part of our museum.
Mm-hmm.
It was the other side that was the front back then. Mm-hmm. If you go to Matewan now, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so it's that back, our little storage area. That was where they were at. That's where the gunfight started, like right at that door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Sid is inside the door, and the mayor and Phelps are standing outside the door, like adjacent to one another, right? And they all pull out the warrants for one another's arrest. I think in your video you talked about this. Mm-hmm. Sid pulls out a warrant for their arrest, and they pull out a warrant for Sid and for Sid's arrest. They start arguing. Somebody fires a shot. Probably Phelps, almost certainly Phelps, who shoots the mayor in the stomach, and then off we go. Right. Guns start blazing. You have some newly appointed deputies. They appointed, I think, a dozen or so deputies that afternoon. And so you have a whole bunch of coal miners turned deputies that afternoon that were like on the roofs, and some of them that were around in the town. So guns start blazing. Phelps brothers get killed. And also Cunningham gets killed. He's one of the others that gets killed. 7 mine guards get killed, and 2 miners, and Cabell Testerman, who dies later on that night.
The mayor.
Yeah. And I mentioned that about Phelps and Cunningham because it's I think it's appropriate. I can maybe it's the or justice, some kind of fitting justice. They were the guys that were at the forefront of all these violent activities, at Ludlow and then at Paint Creek and Cabin Creek.
Well, they're child killers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so they finally, their luck runs out in Matewan.
Yeah.
And so they get killed. And, of course, this incident, it was originally called the Matewan Massacre. We usually refer to it as the Battle of Matewan. It was kind of called the massacre by the companies and by the media.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, in order to make it sound like the miners just ambushed them and massacred everybody.
Makes sense.
And so...
when they were just defending themselves.
Yeah.
Got
yeah. It. So we don't really refer to it so much as I sometimes still refer to the Matewan Massacre just out of habit. Because
that's what I named the video that I did. So
yeah, well, that's what the historic sign says, in the town, the Matewan Massacre.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting to think about, though. So, all right, Sid and Ed make it out. Does anything happen fast forward to Welch, or is that the next event?
No, Welch is not the next event. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens before Welch.
Good to know.
So you go into like a second phase of the mine wars in all of this. Once again, tent colonies get established. The miners all go out on strike. McDowell County gets into this. You have Logan County miners. They're able to actually organize the northern part of Logan County all the way down to a little town called Blair. They get organized. And Blair, the town of Blair was kind of the dividing point between union and non-union. You go south of Blair, non-union. North of Blair was union.
Oh, wow. How are they still talking people into not doing it? Are they saying like, oh, they're corrupt, like the same things they say today? Or
no, you just couldn't get union organizers into those towns.
To speak to people. Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't just pick up the phone really and go, hey.
Right. We can't have a group chat.
Got it.
At this point. But anyway, so they go out in their tent colonies. Mingo, of course, becomes known as Bloody Mingo after this. They do a lot of the same stuff that they were doing on Paint Creek and Cabin Creek. Keeney and Mooney. This is before Martin Luther King. This is before Gandhi. This is before the idea of nonviolent resistance was really a thing. And their only idea was, well, let's get our guns. Let's get guns to these people and let's start, fighting back. The state creates the West Virginia State Police in order to put this strike down.
No way.
Yes.
That's how the state police was started?
The West Virginia State Police was created specifically to put down the labor unrest in these coal counties after World War I.
Wow. I mean, I have so many state trooper friends.
I do
it's
too.
Not their fault. That's crazy to think about, though. I didn't realize that.
Yes. And the state police play a big role in the events that take place right after this.
Right.
Okay. So state police are going to get brought in, a whole bunch of them. And by the way, the state police are going to basically do an attack on one of the tent colonies, the Lick Creek tent colonies, and they're going to attack several of these colonies. And they come in and they arrest a bunch of miners. They slash the tents. They take the food, confiscate the food, and then there were wells. They were using wells for their water, and they poured gasoline down all the wells to poison all the well water. This was in This was just 2 months before the Battle of Blair Mountain that happens.
So they're starving people out.
Exactly. This is one of the big motivators to get people that the miners, when they were marching, the slogan was "On to Mingo." Like it was the Battle of Blair Mountain, but Blair Mountain wasn't where they were going. They were going to Mingo. Okay. And so they had to get through Logan County to get to Mingo. And the reason they were so desperate to get to Mingo is the state police had cut off the UMWA was sending food and sending supplies. The state police cut off those supplies, ripped up the tents, and arrested all the men. And so you just have women and children that are living in these slashed up tent colonies with no food and no water.
Wow.
And so they're trying to get to them. So that's one of the big reasons.
So they're on a time limit. Like
yeah.
Yeah. Because it ain't just like you hop in your car. It's like this is going to take days.
Yes.
To get over here.
There's a bunch of different shootouts. The biggest one takes place in May. And this is, again, Blair Mountain happens in August, late August. This is May. So it's very close to Blair Mountain. It's called the 3-Day Battle of the Tug. This is one of the most it's lesser known in the mine wars. Even a lot of people that know about the mine wars don't know about this. This was a 3-day battle that took on both sides of the Tug River, the West Virginia side and the Kentucky side of the river. And lasted for 3 days. It's estimated that over 100,000 shots were fired. Between 20 and 30 people were killed. And it was fought from Matewan all the way to Merrimack. So it was several miles of continuous fighting that happened for 3 days. The trains would not stop in Matewan. They just went straight on through, and they would tell people, everybody get down. They would all have to get down as they would speed up and try to go through the town, and miners would shoot up the trains as they were going through.
Because they were done.
There were state police that got pinned down underneath their cars for 2 days and couldn't escape because every time they tried to raise up, gunshots would go off everywhere. And it was after this 3-day battle of the Tug that they go and raid the tent colonies. It was after that 3-day battle. Now, by the way, fast forward a little over 100 years, I get a phone call from the museum, and the state police academy, they had a new class of cadets, and they wanted to do something to where they get their class a little up on the history, and they were like, hey, we want to take our whole class to the Mine Wars Museum. Would you mind talking to all the cadets and give them a little take them around the town of Matewan and give them a little talk? And I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I'm there with 50 state police cadets and 3 or 4 state police officers sitting there right next to, and then I'm like, how am I going to tell this story?
Sorry, first off, I love the state police, but let's get us some history.
Yeah. Because, it doesn't paint the state police in a very good light.
That's crazy.
What happened here. And what I did, by the way, is I talked about J.R. Brockus, who was one of the top state police guys, and some of the things that he was a really notorious guy. And then I talked about Sid Hatfield. And I was like, there's good cops and there's bad cops. Which one are you going to be?
Sure. I'd say most of them don't even know.
No.
They're like, yeah, because obviously they do a lot of great things. Back then, it's questionable. Just how it was started was nuts.
Yeah.